is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio. PHLV Radio.
Are you ready to travel? We got all the travel buzz here on Smart People, Travel Wise with Alvin Adriano on PHLV Radio.
Welcome, everyone. Yes. So glad to have you back on the show. And man, do I have a great interview today. I'm super excited to bring a true leader and a person who I recently just met. He has steadily provided his company, ALG Vacations, with calmness, sturdy, and consistent approach to the pandemic. And I can't wait for him to share his thoughts and insight with all of us today. So if you're just tuning in, or if this is just your first time watching, my name is Alvin Adriano, CEO of Travel Wise International, and I'm your host today on Smart People Travel Wise. This podcast is a quick glimpse into the travel industry and the bridges and perspectives of everyone in travel. And I really wanted to share the different views of travel advisors to suppliers, from travel media to technology, and wanted to bring our viewers different perspectives in the travel industry. But before we get started, if you are just tuning in, as a reminder for all of our viewers just watching, if you're watching live, please hashtag live. And if you're watching on the replay, hashtag replay. Also, share where you're watching from so we can acknowledge all of our viewers. And don't forget to catch our show on Facebook, YouTube, or you can listen on the show on Amazon Fire, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, or download the app PHLV Radio, available on all iOS and Android devices. Now, if you haven't been out lately, travel's coming back, and it's coming back pretty hard. We're excited to say that people have been more comfortable with the pandemic, and with the relaxation of travel restrictions and the consistent communication of travel and safety protocols, travel's eagerness have gone skyrocketed out here. And now we want to talk, instead of the consumers, the other side of the equation. How about the tour operators? How does the world of travel now look in the eyes of a travel supplier, or in our industry terms, tour operator? Well, on today's episode, we're going to speak to Vice President of Sales, Vice President of AL Vacations, and get an insider view of how ALG has navigated through the pandemic and what is travel like today. So let me introduce Jim Tedesco, the VP of Sales for Apple Leisure Group Vacations, which also comprises of Travel Impressions, Apple Vacations, FunJet Vacations, Blue Sky Tours, United Vacations, and Southwest Vacations. Jim joined ALGV in 2019 as a 14-year veteran of the travel industry. And throughout his career, Jim has always worked to ensure that travel agents remain an important part of the vacation planning process. In his current role, Jim oversees the BDM team across the United States and works alongside them to ensure the travel agent voice is heard when creating policy and processes. Please smash those heart numbers for Jim Tedesco.
Hey, Alvin, how are you?
Good, man. How are you doing? I know it's been like a couple months since we've seen each other, but how's life going, my friend?
It's good. Yeah, it's been busy, which is a great thing for the travel industry and a great thing for you. But yeah, it's been really good. I'm happy to be here today with you.
Awesome. So I gave a little bit idea of like what your role is, but I mean, for all of our viewers who don't know what a VP actually does, what do you actually do for travel advisors and the travel community?
Yeah. Well, I still try and figure it out each day too, so that's okay. So I'm, as a vice president of sales at Apple Leisure Group Vacations, as you just mentioned, I look after what we call our BDM team, which is our business development managers. Vast majority of our business, the core of our business, actually comes directly from travel agents. So the best way to kind of think of what a tour operator does is, you may go to someone like Alvin as an example, or a travel agent across the U.S. and ask for a vacation, and they may book, a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen room nights there at the hotel you want to go to it every year, where my company probably does 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 room nights a year at these hotels. And we work with them to get competitive rates so that travel agencies can provide you the best possible service and the best possible price. And then we can pay them a commission, right? So that you don't have to, I think that's such a big myth, right? People think they have to pay more sometimes for travel agencies, and it's not always the case. So I look after the BDM team that goes and is sort of like the liaison for training and added opportunities and getting travel agencies in destination. We lead all those activities. So I have the privilege of looking after a team of about 27 across the U.S. that handle exactly that for all 6 of our brands. And my entire career has really been based around travel agencies. So it's not an unfamiliar territory for me whatsoever, which is a fun territory to look after.
Oh, that's so awesome. I mean, we talk about how resilient the travel industry is, and we know that the people, in these positions, in these companies, they're really the heartbeat of travel. Wherever we go, we find different people, cultures, and we get to relate. And I really believe that you are one of the aspiring leaders in this industry because of the way that you've handled your team. I think it's kudos for you and ALG because we needed suppliers to be very effective in communication and laying that out. So for you, being able to be in travel for these last 2 years, how has it been for tour operations?
It's been stressful. I won't lie. It's been a bit crazy for a lot of us in the tourism industry, but I kind of echo your point there about leisure tourism it's an exciting industry to work in, and it's one that changes constantly, right? So from an employee standpoint, someone that enjoys tourism and enjoys working in it, one of the things that I take away one of the things that really makes me show up every day to my job, quite honestly, is yes, my people, yes, our brands, but more so the impact that we have in communities around the world, right? So, just because you're going to a destination for 7 days, yes, you get to enjoy it for 7 days, but the people there, the tourism dollar goes far longer and further than you may think, right? So working in the tourism industry, we get to see how our business affects global economies. We're the 3rd largest economic sector here in the United States alone, and people forget that sometimes. Tourism is huge around the world, and you look at places like the DR, or how important it is to places like Puerto Rico right now, and Mexico, and all around the world, and Jamaica, and you realize that the tourism dollar is so important because it creates jobs. It creates infrastructure, it creates roads and tunnels and bridges, and all of this stuff would not be possible without their number 1 economic impactor, which is tourism. So while you get to go and enjoy it for 7 days, the people there get to enjoy it for a lifetime. Awesome. And being the conduit to making that happen is incredibly important to me and my entire team and our business. Now, going through a pandemic, it was hard because let's be real, tourism stopped. So, we were no longer providing that economic impact into a lot of these destinations. And if there's one thing that I'm thrilled about just getting back to business, it's being able to provide that economy boost again to all these communities. Now, from the tour operator perspective, look, we're used to change. We're used to cancellations and schedule changes, and we're used to, airlines needing to reschedule or cancel flights. But we were nowhere near ready to be ready for the number of cancellations and whatnot. So just for us, I could share with you, we had over 1 million passengers affected because of COVID. We had over 400,000 reservations canceled because of COVID. And some of the things we did, we enacted sort of like some future travel credits and added additional bonus credits if you didn't necessarily ask for a refund, but we're willing to rebook, and things to, help us and help the travel agency, but also to help these communities to keep some of those bookings on the books so they could travel when clients were ready. So it's been a bit crazy, and I'm happy to answer any, in particular questions you have about the pandemic. But, I have to say big kudos to the hoteliers for jumping in and providing things like testing on site, free of charge in many of the cases for the all-inclusive resorts, so that people would just continue to feel comfortable when the January 26th, I believe it was, announcement came out that you needed to test negative within 72 hours to arrive back into the U.S. We were afraid that was going to be the second and horrible thought, but final straw to the tourism industry. And instead, the hoteliers just came up to the plate and said, nope, we're going to do this. We're going to include it. And if someone tests positive at many of the resorts, we'll give you a free stay up to 2 weeks so that you can quarantine here and not have to pay for it. So it gave everyone this added level of confidence, and it helped tour operators like us to survive, to get through the pandemic and get through it.
Oh, well. I love that. I love that. I mean, you had a lot of great points. People don't realize how far the tourism dollar, I think It's about 10% of the global GDP.
Yep.
The dollar represents so many different factors, from the bus bellman to the taxi drivers to the local vendors who are selling, handicrafts. All that is part or takes part of the tourism. And then about job creation, I think 1 out of 4 new jobs are based in tourism. So that is a big important information that a lot of viewers just don't realize. And it's impressive, like for you as well, what you were mentioning about the cancellations and dealing with the hotels and having effective communication, relaying safety protocols and quarantine travel restrictions. I'm sure that has been like a headache just waiting to explode, just things constantly changing and being so fluid. For you guys, what were the biggest hurdles for you guys, or what were the hardest things to overcome during this time?
I think the biggest hurdle might have been the unknown, right? Like, if you were to say to me back in March of 2020 that, and I have to look at my my calendar to, I feel like it's been going on forever to remember what year it actually started. In March of 2020, that it would be November of 21 and we would still be talking about this, I would have laughed. I thought this was going to be, like the swine flu or Zika or just another sort of blip. And, we're constantly changing. We're constantly being proactive and reactive and ready for what's about to hit us next. And I don't think anyone really thought it would last this long. And so no one's prepared for a pandemic. And I think that was probably the biggest obstacle. We tried our best and we did our best in making policies that were created with the information we knew, right? So what I give credit to our business, actually, though, in particular, is that we evolved those policies as time went on and as we realized the depth of which this was happening. So to go from just waiving change fees to recognizing that this was going to be a much longer thing and needing to put a more long-term policy in place. What we did was, like I mentioned earlier, about the 125% bonus credits. Like we basically said, hey, if you're willing to not cancel and just plan to rebook, we'll give you 25% extra to use towards your future vacation, for us to be able to hold on to that money and you can apply the credit later. What we didn't think would happen was 400,000 reservations were affected, and we had no efficient technology to actually not have to manually put those credits onto every single booking. So, again, that was a huge hurdle, but our teams jumped in and we were able to put in automation probably about 6 months later, where our clients were able to go in and pull up their reservation and apply the credit from one booking to the next so that we could free up our accounting team to do other things. So, I think that I could go on. There were plenty of hurdles, but I think it was just the unknown. Like, no one knew what that next step was really going to look like, but we knew we had to take steps to make travel advisors' life easier, to make the client's life easier. And we had to do everything with empathy because, everyone was affected by this in a variety of different ways. So every decision had to be very carefully planned and executed because we didn't want anything to come off, insincere or too big businessy and, not necessarily being respectful of the tone of the industry and not wanting to travel. Like we agreed, but at the same time, we had to create policies that, were going to help us remain a relevant part of the planning process for a long time, and also make your life easier and the traveler's life easier. We had to find that balance among all those different categories.
Oh, that's the unknown. No one knew the unknown would be so long or so vast. I think that's important. I mean, like when we do forecasting, we in our lifetime, I've never experienced that the world stopped just like it did, and for so long. Like you mentioned, if you told me that no one would be flying for 6-8 months and that we would be wearing masks this time, I would probably laugh. But yeah, I think it's crazy how we've all been resilient and navigated our way through. Everyone just showing up and just taking each day or each step at each day at a time, getting through it. And now we're starting to see that. A lot of people are starting to feel more comfortable. Travel restrictions have been relaxed. And so for your forecasting now that we know we've gone to a pandemic and now that we know there's uncertainty, how does this affect your overall forecasting for 2022 and 2023?
Yeah, so it's a tough one because we still know that there's uncertainty in the market, right? Like our business is recovering, it's doing extremely well, but we're still not at the same level that we were in 2019 pre-pandemic. We're not there yet. I will say, I mean, we're very close to that, if not over some days now. But from a year-to-date perspective, we're not finishing the 2021 at the same level we were at in 2019. So we're heading in the right direction, which is fantastic all around for travelers, for travel advisors, and for all the brands that I represent with Apple Leisure Group Vacations. But in making budgeting decisions and making future strategy decisions for the new year, we're kind of in that mindset now where we have to weigh the uncertainty, but you can't run a business prepared for a pandemic because no one would want to book with you. Like you can't have policies that are basically prepared to keep you ironclad during a pandemic. It's impossible. So, you have to sort of find ways to mitigate the biggest risk and identify the biggest risk factors and find ways to find compromise. So I'll give you kind of an example. So we have, with our brands, we have charter flights. So we'll go in and in certain gateways buy airline seats in advance. Sometimes we have the whole plane. Sometimes we have a limited number of seats, half a plane or whatnot. And then what we do is we sell those flights through travel advisors so that in many cases, it's the only nonstop in the market, right? So it provides added value for using a travel advisor. Another reason to use a travel advisor. But it's a risk for us because whether our travel advisor community sells them or not, guess who has to still pay for them? We're on the hook for them. And so pre-pandemic, we had about 500,000 seats a year as part of our charter program. That's what we pre-purchased and sold. And of course, there's a percentage where we say, okay, as long as we sell X percentage of these seats, we're good. Like we're covered, the risk is mitigated. But during a pandemic year, like very few of those seats actually flew in 2020 because of the pandemic. So when it came time for 21, we had to sort of think, do we get rid of this program? It provides a lot of value to our advisors. It provides a lot of value to us at ALG when it sells. How can we mitigate this risk, but still travel through this level of uncertainty? And so in 21, what we did was we actually still went into this program, but instead of 500,000 seats, we had 300,000. And luckily, this year was a fantastic year for booking from, I'd say March, April onward. And we sold more flights this year, percentage-wise, in terms of our yield rate, our occupancy rate, so to speak, in the plane, more than we have in years. So it was like, thank God, because we were able to provide that value to everyone that we wanted to provide value to. And so now looking at 22, we're increasing that from about 300 to about 350. We're not getting fully back to pre-pandemic levels, but we're able to sort of say, look, we've had a good year. We were able to mitigate a lot of that risk. We saw the profitability levels we wanted this year. The risk isn't as strong as we thought it was 2 years ago when we started doing this. So we're a little bit open to exploring more. And that's just an example. There's other areas and risk programs that we have, but I think we just have to now mitigate as much of the risk as possible and plan knowing that there's uncertainty, but you can't run a business to make it pandemic proof. Like I said, no one would book with you. Your policies would be far too strict. Like there's just no way to do that. So you have to sort of weigh the uncertainty and weigh the risk and be ready to accept some of that risk, right? Like you have to budget knowing that this is a good program that we might lose money on, but we're going to make more money over here and that's going to offset it. And so that would help maybe. So it's tough. It's not easy. And I'm sure anyone in any industry right now is going through similar things. It's a tough thing to sort of to look ahead when you don't have a glass ball.
Yeah, no, I love everything you said. I mean, really, how can you plan? And you're right. Having so much, I guess, fine print or, having this it makes it really hard for travelers. It's very complicated. I was just recently traveling during the American cancellation storm
Yes.
over the weekend, and you just have to learn that this is how travel is right now. I mean, you
Yep.
can complain, but the stress levels, I mean, you just have to be prepared for anything to happen and just
Yep.
learn to adapt until things get back to the way they're supposed
Exactly.
to.
Exactly. So I was listening actually not too long ago, Bethany Frankel, who was on the Real Housewives, founder of the Skinny Girl brand, the Skinny brand.
Mhm.
Um, and she said something that has been in my head ever since. And she said, you know what? What the pandemic has given us is a snow globe, and the snow globe has been shaken. And there's still opportunity out there. You just have to find it in different places.
Yeah.
And so I say that a lot to like business owners within the industry and to my own team sometimes. There is still opportunity out there. We still have an opportunity to do business and be very successful at it. The consumers listening to this that want to travel, you still have an opportunity to travel. You may just have to look in different areas to make sure you're prepared now, right? To make sure that you're informed, to make sure that you feel like you're getting the best deal. It's all still there. It's just been moved around. And so, we can still put a business plan together. We can still plan vacations. We can still travel. It's just everything's in a slightly different place than it was prior. The snow globe has been shaken. We just got to find what we need in different places.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, again, crisis is a true revealer. People, this is where people really find to reinvent themselves or refine new preferences and lifestyles, new opportunities. And you mentioned before, like April this year, you started getting more bookings, and it's starting to become more busy in the travel industry. So for all of our viewers, what is hot right now, or what is the trend in travel?
Yeah, so we see and do a ton of Cancun business. And I think part of it, quite honestly, is it's twofold. One, they've been very open with their restrictions. You haven't needed to test prior, you haven't needed to fill out additional forms. You just basically have to test negative within 72 hours of arriving back into the US. The other part, I think, is that it's a short flight for most of America. Right. So if you think about it, it's not too far off, where Texas is, which is right dab in the middle of the US. So, for the East Coast and the West Coast, it's not that long of a flight. And I think in the beginning, what we were seeing was that people were open to traveling. Put it this way, once the income tax checks came out and the vaccinations came out, which were right around the same time, which was like the perfect day for travelers and for travel companies. Everyone started feeling comfortable investing money into tourism again. So I think people felt comfortable being on planes now, but they didn't want to be on it for too long. You also had to wear your mask, and people, if you think about it, it could be a 3-4 hour flight to where you're going, but you got to be at the airport 2 hours before and you're wearing your mask. It could be an hour to the hotel and you're wearing your mask. Before you know it, you're wearing it for 6, 7, 8 hours in the day. The last thing someone wanted earlier in this pandemic was to feel like they had to wear the mask nonstop. So it was a way to sort of minimize that risk for the traveler, and I think that's why Cancun was so popular. On top of all the million of other reasons why someone would want to go to Cancun, it's a fantastic destination. It's one of my favorites. So we're selling a ton of Cancun, but all inclusive in general has really been the key driver to our business and the key driver for the industry this year. Leisure tourism is, especially the all-inclusive market, is leaps and bounds ahead of other areas of the market.
Oh, awesome. I mean, Mexico and Caribbean really saved the travel industry. Being able 100%. To have that 3, 4, 5 hour flight just to get down there.
Yep.
And people were looking for the nonstops. I know, because they didn't want to stop anywhere, risk any contamination or crossing paths with anyone. And so, I really feel for you that the all-inclusive market really was the heartbeat of 2021 and 2021.
Yeah, it was.
But, have you seen more stays, people staying longer, because now they have to deal with the testing all the time and the flights going over there? Do you see people staying longer or having more extended stays?
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was actually more long weekends. It was people not staying too long. They wanted the getaway, but they were doing sort of Friday to Monday type things. The further we get into it, and now we're getting back to a normal length of stay, 5 to 7 days. And a lot of the hotels now are revising some of their policies. Not every hotel, but some are revising. You have to have a minimum 3-night or 5-night stay to have the testing included and free. So it is helping drive a longer length of stay because it just helps people and then not have to pay for the testing that's required to come back. But now that Europe's starting to open, we're seeing Europe rebound too. Like we're seeing a lot of Europe bookings come in. And we don't necessarily sell cruises, but cruises are starting to get planned for 22 and 23 even. So other areas of the industry are starting to bounce back as well.
Wow. And so, with everything opening up, there's so much opportunity. And you talked about it, about automation and how that has helped. Technology has been, we've been accelerated in the way that we use technology in this industry. And it's been a component of innovation. And so how will travel change, in your opinion, with the use of technology now?
Yeah, that's a good question. Technology for us, like I mentioned, we've had to implement additional things into our business that we weren't really ready or prepared to do. But it dictated it, right? We had to find new ways of being more automated, and we had to do more with less people, is the quite honest truth. And so a lot of the technology side of it with our automation came in handy. With the industry in general, though, I'm going to use United as an example because I'm from New Jersey. I'm a Newark-based guy, so I fly United quite often. But all the airlines now, you're seeing these testing requirements are going into effect by the CDC, by the state government, by the State Department. But it's up to the airlines to truly monitor it. And so they've been tasked with a very strong responsibility of making sure that those that need to be tested are tested, have the proper results within the time frame needed before they board that plane. And it's up to the airlines to check it. And it's up to the airlines to keep those records. And so, I'll use United as the example. They have that travel ready center. So, you go on before your flight, it tells you exactly what you need to enter the destination. It tells you exactly what you need to come back from the destination. It gives you links and help to find testing sites if you need it. You take a picture of your testing to return, you upload it. They have someone that approves it. I'm sure it's an automated process as well, looks for keywords or whatnot. And then it comes back and it clears you. And it's been a great way for them to record keep all of these necessary documentations, but also make sure that they're complying with the government procedures that are now in place. And so, we're already unknowing to the consumer, probably seeing what this new wave of travel looks like through technology. We see it through the travel ready centers. And I know American and Delta have their own, I think through Verify and other areas as well, other support networks as well. We see it even in the airport now. A lot of times you go in and you don't go right to the ticket agent. You go to a kiosk and you plug in everything that you need. You get your bag tags, you tag your own bag, and you go to the baggage drop off and you do a lot of it yourself. So, even in flight, we're seeing Wi-Fi be upgraded where you can now stream. So you can watch your Netflix and Hulu accounts there. And we're seeing more in-flight entertainment with the seatback TV screens. And technology is definitely playing a bigger part. Even with, I'll rewind years ago. I flew Air New Zealand, and the flight attendant, because it was such a long flight, you could actually order a drink. I remember ordering orange juice and chocolate chip cookies from my entertainment, and it dinged in the back, and the flight attendant brought it to me so that they didn't have to keep walking up and down the aisle disturbing people. Like, technology has always shaped our industry. It's just completely taking a different attitude now, right? It's shaping more how we travel pre and post rather than just how we travel during.
I love it. One thing that we realize is data is so important, and the transmission to it, or moving it from one place to another, is so important, because that's how effective communication became such an integral part of the travel process.
Yep.
Having all these forms filled out, having all your registrations, everything like that, had for contract tracing, all that made everything a lot faster. And I think as we start getting more, comfortable with how information is collected, we're going to see a really rebirth of how we're going to be able to travel. Yep. I remember, like you said, I just boarded a JetBlue flight, and literally everything was streamlined into it where I can see my name throughout the process, just moving through the ticketing. And I'm just like, well,
Yeah.
that's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's, I mean, even Delta now, you can track your luggage.
Yeah. I
In
put
real
in
time.
that. Yeah, that was so
Exactly. Yeah. And even, I don't know if you're, I'm a Clear member. Do you have Clear at the airport?
Yep.
It's all through your irises. You take your glasses off, you look into the thing, and it knows exactly who you are. You never even have to take out your wallet to show your ID. Everything is just, it's very. I feel like I'm in the Matrix some days, but it's good for the industry.
Mobile passport. Have you tried that yet?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
was
have.
cool
Yep,
too.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So again, all these little things are making it so accessible. You can do it from your phone, having all your information. It really makes it a lot easier because you don't have to deal with all the like writing down these forms and filling it over and over and over again. So yeah, I believe we're going to see a rebirth of how technology is going to make things a lot faster and easier for all of us.
Yeah. But I will say that the tourism industry, though, is founded and grows because, like, the cornerstone of its success is always the human element, right? The human touch and the human interaction, and the human experience is what makes this industry successful. So as much as some people like to say, the technology is taking over, it's not. The technology is making it more efficient. It's making it easier to do business, and it's making it, in a lot of ways, more profitable for the businesses that operate because they can allocate their people to do better things and other things for their customers rather than sitting there taking papers at a check-in gate or something. It allows them to do other things. But the human element is the cornerstone of the success for anyone in tourism, whether you're a travel advisor, whether you're a tour operator, or whether you're the customer traveling. The human element will always remain paramount in tourism. And that's my firm belief, but I think it's one that is, we'll say, well researched, right? Like, it's people don't come back and say, hey, I love the UA Travel Ready Center. They come back and say, hey, you're never going to believe the bartender I met at the all-inclusive swim-up bar that was able to, do these tricks. Like, those are the stories we truly come back. So we're appreciative of all the technology enhancements, but it's the human element that creates our life stories.
Love it. That's so important that you recognize that. A lot of people, you don't realize how important it is to have soft skills or human skills.
Exactly.
We have saying in our company, we automate the mundane, but we humanize the exceptional. Because there's things that people don't realize that makes people's day. The reason why we travel are the people. People made the buildings, people have the cultures, people have the traditions. Those are things that we celebrate. And so once you realize and understand the people, then you understand why you travel.
Yeah,
and it makes
exactly.
it so beautiful. So I love that.
And like, even with my sales team, we were grounded for well over a year. We're salespeople. We're not wired to work virtually. We like to talk to people and see people and touch and feel and hug and experience things together. And it was tough. And we talked earlier about hurdles, and I kind of said the unknown, but another hurdle we had to overcome was it was so easy to lose the human element of our company because everything was virtual. Forget about the technology and all that stuff. It was just everything was virtual. Everything was through email. Everything was through a Zoom call, which this is great. But I mean, Alvin, I'd much rather be back in, Jamaica with you and having a drink, at the breathless Montego Bay. Like, that's what grows this industry. And it's so good to be back. But the human element is so important to a business and to an experience.
So let me ask you one thing. The pandemic definitely put a damper in a lot of people's plans, but we navigated through. But what's one thing that you can appreciate that arose from the pandemic?
I'll take it on a personal level. I think the pandemic has been very good to me, right? Like, I met my wife. We started dating just a few months before the pandemic started. We got married this past June. We're actually due with our first child next year. And it really just taught me to slow down. Work was taking over, and in the tourism space, it's very easy for that to happen. And I think the timing of it all was great for me because it really taught me that lesson of how important work-life balance is. And I think a lot of people found that same message during the pandemic. as much as trust me, now that I'm back on the road, as much as I call, virtual gym is more like sweatpants gym and shower every other day gym. As much as I love being back to in-person gym where I get to dress up and look like I'm a civilized human in society, I do miss sometimes that slower pace of what it was like when we were during the pandemic. And so, moving forward, it's definitely, and I tell this to my team all the time, work-life balance is so important. Take that time. If it means putting your laptop down at 5:30, then that's what that means. If it means going for a walk at noon, then that's what that means. Whatever you need to feel like you have that balance is important. And that's one thing that I've definitely learned. Professionally, I think that we as a company and as an industry have realized how important what we do is, right? Like I started this by kind of saying that I subscribe firmly to that belief that we are the reason that so many global economies are the way that they are, that there's infrastructure, that there's jobs, there's, all this good stuff. During the pandemic, I think those that didn't realize that realized it. And that's a fantastic thing for the world. It's a fantastic thing for businesses. It's a fantastic thing for tourism. And I think everyone just started to realize, it's a tough world out there. We have to help each other. We have to look out for each other. And tourism absolutely does that.
Yeah. I think everyone realized the importance of work-life balance, being able to slow down and find purpose or meaning in why we do the things we do. And I love how you brought that all in full circle, knowing how much impact that your job or the lives that we impact by bringing tourism to their country, it made us more, humanize what we do, because we do help other people have their daily lives, or and it's crazy to see the impact for other countries, because they can't, tourism wasn't, they couldn't do anything. There's nothing they could do. They were just waiting there.
I know. Yeah. I tell everyone, your passport, this is a great little thing that I love to pass on always, is that a passport is and should be the most exciting book you'll ever read. That passport is filled with memories and stories and pictures and, not necessarily right in front of you, but all up here. And the tourism industry plays such a large part in helping author those stories. And definitely during the pandemic, we realized how much we missed being part of those stories, whether you were the one experiencing them or the one helping plan them or the one being the conduit to booking them. We all realized how much we missed that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I'm so thankful for you stopping by the show and being able to share some insights, especially from your point of view. We always hear from the consumers and, what was affecting, how they were affected, but from the tour operators and the impact that you play, I think it was important to give our viewers that insight. So I thank you again for being here and stopping by. But with that said, Jim, do you have any last minute thoughts or any kind of last message that you want to say to our viewers about travel?
Travel. Book the ticket. No, you know what I'll say? Just always, a lot of people will say when you travel, be prepared. I always like to say, be ready. Plan the vacation, talk to people who can help give you the advice that you need, and be ready, because it's hard to be prepared when there's things that you just can't plan when you travel. There could be a delay, there could be a misconnection, there could be, a room category happened to be oversold. Just always be ready and be ready to sort of, I don't even know how you put it, right? Just like let it roll off your back, right? Like you're in a beautiful world. Like, don't get stressed. Just roll with it and have fun, because these opportunities don't come all the time. So soak it up when you do. And if a travel advisor can play a part in it, or if our brands can play a part in it, it makes us smile that much harder. So that's our job. We're here to help.
Thank you so much, Jim. I love the words. I love the insight and inspiration. Thank you again. We'll have to bring you back on the show to let us know all new updates with ALG, because I know everyone's going to start traveling. We would love to hear more about what's going on in travel with you.
Good. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. You're doing a great job on this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. And there you have it. In my lifetime, I've never experienced a world where travel was suppressed like it has in the last 2 years. However, it is back, and thanks to tour operators like ALG, we are able to travel once more. Communication is an important part of these travels these days, and information being passed quickly through multiple channels, whether it's through travel advisors, gate agents, government tourisms, whatever. The world continues to evolve and adapt, but no matter what, travel will continue. We know in the travel industry that curiosity is only the beginning, and as the world begins to open with the possibilities, the travel industry will wait patiently for all travels to feel more comfortable. I love what Jim was talking about the purpose and how people were able to understand more meaning into their life and why they wanted to travel, and that people are the real reason why we actually explore the world. So thank you again for Jim and ALG for everything that you've done, especially during this pandemic. And we hope the Renaissance of travel continues on. Now, you can always reach our award-winning travel agency, TravelWise International. If you ever need suggestions, recommendations, we are here to help. You can call us at 301-248-8898, or you can visit us on the web at www.itravelwise.com. We help all of our viewers, all of our passengers and clients travel the world. So thank you again for being here, spending some time and listening to different travel perspectives. Again, Smart People Travel Wise airs every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time and 3 p.m. East Coast time. Until next time, Smart People Travel Wise.
Just like a friend from back home.
This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.
PHLV.